Hey, welcome back to the Experience Show. My name is Blake, and today I am doing your guide to playing Sealed in Draft for Arthurian Legends, as well as a little bit of how I'm going to be storing my collection all in a 2-for-1 video here. So, obviously, we have to play on the Death Dealer playmat that we won from after winning the Sealed event here a week ago. So, huge thank you to the Sorcery team for providing me this mat for winning that tournament. And so let's go ahead and get in here. So I like to store my collection in these 4x3 binders, so that way I can continue to do play sets, and you'll see kind of what I do for the exceptional cards whenever we get there. But as we're going through this, there's going to be a little bit of a tier system that we're going to be going through. And so we're going to have A cards. These are cards that are telling me, hey, this color is open. This is a top tier pick, one that I'm going to want to get earlier in the pack. B, that's going to be a card that I'm going to play pretty much every single time, but it's not necessarily something that'll pull me into that color. C, these are cards that I will play. I don't really want to play, but they're cards that will go into my deck. And then D, kind of the don't play tier. These are cards that I'm really not looking forward to playing in draft or sealed, and something kind of went wrong if we end up playing one of these cards. So starting off with Arc Lightning. Arc Lightning is really strong in this format because there is not a lot of removal. This is probably either a low A or a high B pick. This is a really solid card, one that you're not going to be upset if you're picking up, second, maybe third pick. I don't know if it's quite first pickable, depending upon the pack. If you're on pack 3 and you know for a fact that you're an heir, maybe it becomes that way. Arc Lightning, really strong card. Band of Thieves, the 3/3 with stealth here, really strong. It's something that I want to play almost every single time. You have a guaranteed attack in for 3 to help you be aggressive. Really good card. There's not a ton of 3-power minions in the format, so just a 3/3 is really good. The Servants, so this family cycle here, these are all really solid in all of the colors. You're going to want to play them most of the time, but just because you see one doesn't necessarily mean the color is open. I'm prioritizing, something like an Arc Lightning, a Band of Thieves, most likely over the Castle Servants, unless this is late game. I know that the family is going to be something that I'm trying to splash, and I need some more sources for. So taking here the sprites, these are ones that I don't necessarily really love. They're a 2/2, which is fine, but you don't really know what's in your opponent's hand, and just because you name a card that they can't play for one turn doesn't necessarily mean anything. They stop it for a turn, but they're going to be able to draw, they're going to be able to play other cards, other sites, so I'll play it as a 2/2, but really that Genesis effect is not one that I plan on utilizing very much in sealed or in draft. The Banshee here, this is one that I really do not want to play. It's a 4/3, and so that alone, it's already really high. It's not, the cost for power isn't quite there, and you may cast for 0 if an allied mortal died this turn. You're not necessarily getting a ton of value out of this. There's not a lot of draw in the game. And so just even if you get, you high roll, you get a free 3/3, I still don't think that's a great card that I'm going to be super eager to play in my heir deck. But what I will be excited for is a Magic Missiles. Magic Missiles, really good. Not quite as good as Arc Lightning, but if you're seeing late Magic Missiles, that means it's definitely open. It's probably an A pick. This is a high tier pick for you as you're going through in draft. If you're seeing this in sealed, these are really good signs to be able to see. The Owl, this is one that I don't necessarily think that I really want to play. It's just a 1/1. You can cast your minions to this site, kind of like a summoning sphere, but this doesn't necessarily deserve a card. I would rather play, something that adds a little bit more board presence, a little bit stronger. So not one that I'm really looking to play here. Power of Flight, I think, is fine. It's not something that I'm thrilled to play, but it's something that I think is fine to play. You can catch your opponent off guard. There's not a lot of movement in this format, and so potentially giving a knight flying and then being able to come in and attack into a corner could catch somebody off guard. It does cycle itself, but it doesn't necessarily give you a 2-for-1. At most, this is 1-for-1ing or just cycling a card. And so Huntress is actually, it is probably a high C pick, potentially a low B, because range 2 is really strong, especially when you're on the play, and you can play this out on your second sight, and that can really lock down your opponent from being able to play directly in front of you. And so Huntress, really, really strong minion in this format because it's range 2, and there's a lot of 2-power minions in this format. So as we come up here, closing out air, tactical move. This is one, so it's one at a time. Each ally may take up to 2 steps. I don't want to put don't play it, but it's really like it's a low C. This is not a card that I'm really thrilled to play. So it's a low C. If I had to play it, I felt like the repositioning was good. I'm kind of talking myself as I'm going here, and I'm thinking I just really don't want to play this card. I think that there's some cool things that maybe this can do in constructed, but within the limited environment, I don't want to use a card moving my minions around. I want to use my cards to be able to take and get additional value and try to get 2-for-1 opportunities. So, all right, and the Weightless Squire here, 3/1 Airborne and Lance. This is another one that I'm not thrilled to play. It's definitely better than tactical moves, so we'll leave it at the C tier. But there's not a ton. Like, you can maybe getting in, you just start chipping away for 1. It can be hard to get rid of these pesky airborne flyers. Your opponent's not going to want to necessarily use removal spells on it, but it's not going to be something that adds too much value. You want to give your lances really to things that are 2 and 3 power to help uptrade. Brown Bear. Brown Bear is a really strong card. There's not a ton of 4-power minions. This is definitely one that you're playing every single time. I'm picking these up highly. They're really strong ordinaries that you'll hopefully be able to see if you're playing Earth in your draft format. Families, very similar. Same kind of thing here is that really strong is kind of the other families, just being able to help you provide the threshold. You'll see that they balance the limited environment so much differently in this set than they did in Alpha and Beta, where you have a lot of tube threshold cards. You have a lot of knights that you're trying to cast that require a lot of different threshold. And so the family cycle, really strong here in Arthurian Legends. Duel, an ally fights an enemy adjacent to it. And this can help you get some additional value. This is a really strong card in Earth. It's not quite as good as Grapple Shot. Like, I think that if you're seeing this, kind of late, it's definitely telling you that it's open. I don't know if it's quite A tier because it doesn't exactly remove something. It doesn't give you the guaranteed 2-for-1. It's probably a super high B pick. You're playing this every single time that you have it. You're playing as many copies as you can. Duel plus Brown Bear can just be a menace. So really strong card here. Field Laborers is interesting. So this is one that I intentionally chose not to play. And I knew a lot of people that were playing them saying, hey, I know I want to ramp into big things. I have some giants that I'm trying to get into. But just a 3-mana tap to gain 2, and it has 2 Earth Threshold. Like, it's not one that I was excited to play. Now, this could be, as I play more limited, more sealed, and more draft, that Field Laborers feels a little bit better. But for right now, this is not a card that I'm prioritizing. Or I'm definitely prioritizing, bears, families, and Duel. The Grain Sparrow here, the Pidgeot, or Pidgeotto itself, this is one that same thing. I just really don't want to play. It has a Genesis to be able to draw or to gain 2 life. Really, really strong in the sense that you like gaining life, but to just be on a 1/1 body, if it was on a 2/2, it would be so much better. But just being on a 1/1, it's not really something that you're really hoping to play. It's, you play it down. I wouldn't spend a card to gain a life, and so I wouldn't be playing Grain Sparrow in my deck. The Leprechaun, though, is a definite card that you're slotting this in. You're getting excited when you see it. This is a top tier uncommon or ordinary, top tier ordinary spell for you to play. It is really, really strong. It has basically draw a card here. Because you're playing Spellslinger, you want to be able to draw as many spells as possible. The sights component of it, if you're taking a turn to tap to draw a sight, you can, it slows down your ramp. And so Leprechaun here coming down as a 2/2, really, really strong. Rescue is one that if I opened, 3 copies, I'm not playing all 3. I think Rescue is really good. It's probably one of the highest C tier cards I would be able to give it, and that's because there's not a ton of big minions in this deck or in this format, and so if you have a lot of big beefy things that are hard to get rid of, Rescue can help get them back, and it's kind of like drawing the best minion in your deck in the late game. So I'm maybe playing 2 at most. I would never play more than 2. I'm probably only playing 1 because you really only want to see it in the late game. Maybe in draft, you can see something come up here with the pigs, but in sealed, and unless the draft format opens up in a way that you have a lot of squeakers, you have a lot of pigs, I wouldn't really be playing squeakers very much. I'm deprioritizing these, and the bad thing is when we get into the pigs here later, pigs and sounder, you'll see that you're probably picking those up pretty highly. And so the odds of them just floating around are low, but the odds of you getting some squeakers here past you at the late game, that could be pretty high. Tax Collector here, a 3/2 that has Genesis. On your opponent's next turn, their spells cost 1 more. This is not a card that I'm really looking to play within Earth. I would play it if I had to. I think it's better than Squeakers, but this is not something that I want to use a card effect on, is to make their spells cost 1 more. There's better things to be able to do with your mana than just put a 2/2 out. Thankless Squire, 3 lances. It's really hard to know the value of 3 lances. I mean, you could look at the site that says pay 1 to generate a lance and maybe say they're worth 1, but it's really hard to say. Thankless Squire is not one that I'm like, yes, I get to play Thankless Squire. It is a fill card at best. I wouldn't quite say don't do it, but once it carries and it drops its lances, it's not, there's really nothing it can do. It's immobile, it can't tap, it can't do anything, it can't walk. And so this Thankless Squire is really not, you're going to be not thankful for it whenever it just sits there on your site, not doing anything. So not really a card that I'm really looking forward to playing. Oh, poor Walls. There's just not too much that you can do right now to play the Walls deck. It's, they take 2 damage when they come in. They're not going to kill anything walking through the walls. They're going to try to walk around. It doesn't add any effect. There's no guarantee that it's going to remove something. And so you're just wasting a card that could be adding value. And you're just kind of losing the tempo out there. So Walls is not something that I'd be playing here. Nothing too special to say. We're going to go ahead and move on from the families. Say B here. Burning Hands, though, like this is a world-class card. Burning Hands says, may be cast by an allied mortal, choose 2 different cardinal directions, and deal damage to each of those locations in the area of effect. And so it has, we'll just pretend that we're casting it from here and that these are our squares. It does 2 damage, then 1 damage, 2 damage, then 1 damage. And the reason why that's so strong is there's not a lot of ways to finish an Avatar at Death's Door. Well, Burning Hands is a great way to do it. You can get sneaky by using a mortal to be able to do it. This is a phenomenal finisher. This is such a good card and really is what separates Fire apart here. Charge. This is not a card that you want to be playing in Limited. Give an allied charge this turn. One that means that you're taking a turn off of playing that minion just so you could give it charge that turn, the following turn. This is not a card that you really want to play. It's not worth giving a card up to just give something charge. And this is one that I think is a trap card. It seems cool whenever you read it. You know that charge is good. And you're like, oh, 1 mana for charge isn't bad. But it's not the 1 mana for charge. It's the cost of what would a better spell have been if it wasn't charge in your deck. And that's really what makes a difference here. Hamlet's Ablaze. I'm really curious about this one. I don't know yet if this is like a super high B, a super low B card. What I'll tell you is that Hamlets Ablaze, if your opponent is playing 3 colors and you are playing 3 or 4 of these Hamlets Ablaze, there's not a lot of draw. This format's a lot slower. If you start destroying your opponent's thresholds, taking them off colors, and a lot of the sites that people are playing are ordinary and exceptional in sealed and draft environments, Hamlets Ablaze could be a really, really strong card in a limited format. I don't know if land destruction is a theme that you can play within a draft, but it'd be something I'd be curious to see. If you start seeing a lot of these come late game, you're gonna have to give that a shot, because I do think if you're playing with Hamlets Ablaze and constructed some, I think there might be something here with a Hamlets Ablaze sealed deck, or sorry, draft deck. Harassian Ruffians here, really, really strong card. High top of B, one of the best, probably the second pick that you're taking out of a lot of packs here. Units attacked by Harassian Ruffians can't be defended. Really good. It can help you go in. You can start taking out some of these 2-power minions. They can't block. They can't defend it. If they want to come in and attack you, they have to use something that's at least 3 powers, or if they use a lance, something along those lines. So Harassian Ruffians, really strong card. Okay. Continuing to move on, we have Joust here. An ally targets an enemy. They switch that it's adjacent to. Both take a step towards each other, and if they pass by each other, they fight. So really what this means is, let's say we have one minion here and a minion here. They will trade places, striking each other as they trade places, and then dealing the damage. If you're able to use Joust in combination with lances, or catching people off guard, Joust is such a top tier card. It's probably not as good as Burning Hands. It's probably on the same level as Duel. We're going to go ahead and put it in the B. This is a high pick. This is a second pick in draft. Really, really strong card. Really good. And speaking of just strong cards, playing a big giant, this is the Bear of Fire, Lumbering Giant. You're definitely playing this if you get it. This is probably a 3rd or 4th pick type card, but still really strong, kind of on the lower middle parts of B. Reckless Squire here with Charge and Lance. And so the question is Charge better than Airborne? And it can be. You can go in, you can charge and walk past the lance over to one of your own knights, and then that knight can use it. It's better than the not Thankless Squire. What was the one that we were looking at? Weightless Squire. It's better than Weightless Squire because of charge, helping you be able to position and hand the lance off to somebody else that could be already in the thrill of battle. But it's still not a card that I really want to play. So this is a bottom of C. Not quite don't play tier, but not a card to prioritize very highly. Redbreast Robin. I heard some interesting things about this minion during the Sorcery event. I'm going to go ahead, and this is the only of these 1-power, 1/1 birds. I'm going to go ahead and put into probably the bottom of B. B, honestly, is probably too high. But instead of the D tier, we're going to go ahead and put it in the C tier. It's one that you don't mind if it's in the deck, but I wouldn't necessarily be I'm not thrilled that it's always in there. But what I was seeing opponents do is that they were using it, they were flying it in, standing on top of an opponent's avatar, and then they would just start pinging for 1 damage, sometimes 2 damage a turn if they were able to attack. And because there's not a lot of removal, that 1 damage can add up, and people don't really want to spend their removal just going after this Redbreast Robin, this little 1/1. And so this one can actually do some damage and can be a really strong card. It just, your deck has to be set up in a way, and it's not necessarily one that I'm picking very high. But if you're picking this pack, or pick 5, 6, you're pretty happy with a Redbreast Robin in pack 5. And we have our Scout here. We're just going to go ahead, throw that in the C. It's a 2/2. It's not great. I don't necessarily want to play a whole bunch of 2/2s, but I don't mind if I need to. It can be cast anywhere where there's not an enemy. That's somewhat of an upside, because you can put it next to your opponent's avatar, but it's not one that I'm playing very highly here. And we've talked about so many of these different 2/2s and lance tokens and some of the knights. Viking, just really strong here. Tap deal 2 damage to each unit. at target adjacent location. So that's kind of that plus pattern that it can hit. And that 2 damage can go a long way. It can help hit somebody that's on death's door. It can help do an initial ping to allow a lance to be able to pick up somebody on a bigger minion. The Viking, really strong. This is a 3rd pick type uncommon here, or common, ordinary that I'd be playing. And I would play 4 copies of these if I could. It's really good. Hard to remove these 4 power minions. Moving over to water, we have our families, same thing. We're going to put them in that B tier. Thin Wife here, Submerge provides 2 mana for each nearby enemy avatar. I think this is a bit of a trap. It's just 2/2. I would not really be wanting to play this. The effect, I guess, is fine. Like, if you had to play this card, you could, but it's not one that I'm super excited to play. Grievous Insult here. So maybe cast by an ally, silence target, which basically means remove its text box until this turn, tap it, and then draw a spell. It cycles, so that's good. But something that you could do is get rid of the text box of, like, the Leif Affect, for example, and get rid of that lethal, so that way you go ahead and go in, attack, potentially keep your minion around. That could be good. But this is a low C card. So, I mean, I looked at this and read it a couple of times, but I knew I didn't want to play it in mine. So this could even be going down into the D tier of, like, I really don't want to play this. Helpful Hob is cool because it can untap adjacent allies, which means your avatar, which can help you ramp out an extra site. But this is not a card that you're really looking to play right now. I'm going to bump it up a little bit. I'll put it in C. Because let's say you go in and you attack with a big minion, it would be good to be able to untap it and then attack one more time. But there's no guarantee that you're going to have that big minion on the board whenever you play it. And so you don't really want to play a ton of these and then there just be a 4/1 that you can't do anything with. All right. Lake Affect, really, really strong card. If you're seeing a lot of these late, water is wide open. Lethal and Submerge, there's not a lot of ways to get rid of some of these big minions. And then water paired with fire, you have Joust. Water paired with earth, and then you have duel going in there with lethal. Giving anything with lethal a lance is really, really strong because it just kills it right away. It doesn't matter how big it is. So really good card. One that you're picking up here. This is probably like a pick 2, pick 3 type card. So really good card. Led Astray, choose any number of enemies at target location, take a step towards another location that they're adjacent to. This is just really, like, you can pull them into harm's way to help give you some favorable trades. This is maybe the top end of D, bottom of C. It'd be kind of cool to unposition 2 of your opponent's minions and then go in for an attack, but not necessarily an effect that I'm thrilled to play in my draft environment. All right, Shameless Squire here has Lance, and then Genesis, tap target nearby enemy, and it drops everything it carries. This is pretty interesting because you can have it drop a Lance, and then you can go ahead and use either attack with your own or pick up the Lance and then get an attack in. So I'm gonna put this in the C tier. It probably falls in line with about where the charge one was. Shelly Coat was a bit of a surprise here. Submerge takes 1 less damage as a 2/2. This is a really strong one, actually. So because there's so many 2-power minions, it can go in, it can block, and when it does that, that's able to, it's almost like a tufted turtle type situation. Shelly Coat, really strong here. Sly Fox gains stealth at the end of your turn. This reminds me a little bit of the Robin. I'm going to put this in the C tier because there's not a ton of ways to buff it, but if you were able to buff it, there's not a lot of good ways to remove it. Stealth is no longer hit by projectiles, and that'd be the main way to be able to get rid of this Sly Fox. I wouldn't mind having 1 to 2 of these. I don't want a ton of them in there. This isn't a high pick card. This is a card that could even go all the way around the table, but it's one that you could slide in, and you're probably not going to be too upset with 1 or 2 Sly Foxes in there walking around the realm, chipping away at your opponent. Now, here, this one, Swindler Troop, Genesis, give another nearby minion stealth as a 3/3. This is a really, really strong, better than Band of Thieves, I would say, type card here. Water coming in strong here with Swindler Troop. Really good at just having a big body, giving something stealth, especially if it has a lance. It can't be blocked, it goes in, it's able to kill something. It can be a really strong effect here. Thieving Magpie, fun fact, it can steal your Philosopher's Stones out of your hands, which is kind of cool, but it's not really a card that I'm really wanting to play limited. Stealing lances would be cool, but then they have to have a lance. You have to have a Magpie, go in, steal it. This is not one that I really want to play. Just a Rock. This is, if there was a best of 3 draft that you were playing, you'd throw these on the sideboard, you'd be happy about it. But in this context, this is not a card that you really want to play in a best of 1 format. All right, and we are moving on now into the exceptionals. We have Attack by Night. Enemies drop their artifacts. Allied units strike first this turn. It's a decent card. It's probably a high C in the sense that you can catch some people off guard. You might play this. It personally did not make my cut, just because you have to have a board presence. Then they have to have a whole bunch of allies, or your enemy has to be on sites that you can attack for you to want to have this effect. Castaway, though, this is a card that you play if you will play 6 of these, if you have 6 of these. But to shuffle an opposing minion into your opponent's library, really, really strong card here. Not a lot of removal for the big things, and so Cast of Exile, premium removal, and Constructed, premium removal here in draft. Castle Haunt is going to be a D tier. This is not one that I'd be looking to play if I were you, because you don't know if they're going to play any elite or unique sites, and then you just have a dead 3/4 that you can't do anything with. So not a card that I'd be playing. Maybe it can go on defense, but even then, I'm not playing Castle Haunt. Fine Courser. So charge, movement +1, may carry an ally. This is a decent card. It's okay, it's fine. It's probably a C tier. Movement and mobility is good. Carrying an ally is good. Charge is cool. It can help you close out a game is kind of what I'm seeing, but this isn't one that I'm really thrilled to play. And same thing really goes with Sisters of Silence. Hopefully you're playing impactful cards that add a board presence, that do something on the board, and just putting down a 2/1 to draw and discard. There's not a ton of discard synergies within the limited format, so not necessarily a card that I'm really looking to play in limited. Honestly, it's probably just straight up don't play it. That might be the best way to categorize it. Tooth Fairies here. This card is one that I actually misread when I was going through and drafting. This is a little bit better than I thought. Exceptional Airborne. At the start of your turn, tap nearby enemy. That tap effect can be really, really strong to help you push through and get some damage. I'm definitely probably playing Tooth Fairies next time I'm playing air in my deck. It's not necessarily this big, finisher type card. I'd rather have more than 2 power, but that tap effect could be really strong to help you push through some damage with some of these knights later on. Whirlwind, I feel like, has to be just an exceptional card, a constructed card. You're basically able to do force movement, but it's not really something that you're going to be seeing or playing in draft. And then it says, choose clockwise or counterclockwise. Each unit in an artifact atop a site in a 2x2 area is pushed 1 step in that direction. It's just, it's a positioning thing, but I don't know how much that really helps you. All right, Banishment says, give all minions stealth and then draw a card. This is one that I would love to be able to play probably just 1 copy in my deck, because you never know if you're going to be in a stalemate situation where you and your opponent are looking each other down and you have enough power on the board to put your opponent at death's door, but they have enough blockers to get in the way. Banishment can be used here to be able to go in, get an alpha strike in, to go ahead, bring your opponents to death. Is that you can use Banishment to position yourself in a way where you can attack and positively trade into your opponent's cards. Because of that, the first one I would say is a B, that you're pretty happy having that in your deck. It's probably a bottom B, but a B all the same. Any copies after the first one probably falls into the C category. But Banishment, Really good card. One that I'm curious if you can see even have constructed play as we continue to go around. Blue Cap wing 3/3. And the only thing that matters on here is that it's a 3 mana, 3 power minion, and you're really happy playing the blue cap knockers just because there's not a lot of 3 power minions, and so you're playing every single one of these you can get your hands on. Now, these giants, on the other hand, they cost 7, they are 6 power. This is basically like a rare in this format. And the giant coming down is a great one that you're going to want to have here to continue to push damage on your opponent. It's really hard to remove and is one that you're going to want to go ahead and slot into your deck. Squirrels, I don't necessarily know if I really want to see here. They have Genesis, target nearby artifact that can be carried and hide it beneath the site, which really just means to burrow it, but this isn't really an effect that you really want. This is probably like a C, maybe even a D card. You don't really want to play it because you don't really want to leave a 1/1 behind after just getting rid of a Lance token. So there's probably better things to be doing with your cards than playing the frisky red squirrel. Hunting Party is really strong because it has nearby enemies lose stealth, but really the main thing is that it's ranged. It is a ranged 3 power minion. Because of that, it is a super high B tier pick. It's definitely not a rare level pick, but it is one that you are happy putting into your deck because you can tap it and remove a lot of minions from your opponent's team. Knighthood, this is one that I think might have some play potential in constructed, but in limited, 2 for 1ing yourself by being able to get out an early knight. I don't know. There's value in the ability to go around the threshold that Knighthood can help you do, but you need to get a lot of little mortals out and to be able to make a Knighthood valuable. And I don't know if I really want to use a card on it. It's probably, I'd be curious. I did not build around it. I did not test it. I did not have a high enough density of knights for me to want to play this. See any sort of draft play. Pigs of Souter is very similar to the blue cap knockers, where really you're playing it because it's a 3/3, it's a solid B card. The odds of you having a grand old boar in your deck is very slim. I don't think that you're going to be able to really try to combo off with the Pigs of Souter here. Stone Rain is not quite as good as I was hoping it would be, and it says, target a site up to 2 steps away, deal 1 damage to everything atop it, repeating for each site in your hand. You don't have a ton of sites in your hand because of the spell slinger. You don't have a ton of ways to gain sites and to put sites in your hand. And so you have to play a site to get to turn 4, assuming that there's minions that you want to kill on turn 4, and then have all these sites in your hands to kill really a whole bunch of small minions, which isn't really all that ideal. So Stone Rain is kind of a close to D card, if maybe it's bottom of C, but I don't really want to play Stone Rain in limited. Where Wyvern, on the other hand, I want to play as many of these as I can. 6 mana, 5 power, airborne, really strong, rare level type card that's coming in, hard to remove, and getting after it, going after and attacking your opponent. You're thrilled to be able to open up or to pull or play a Wyvern in your sealed deck. Huge sign that you should be going into Earth and some of the Wyverns here. Moving over to Fire, there is not a lot of removal in this format, which I sounded like a little bit of a broken record. And so these next cards here of Fire Breathing, Lava Flow, both are going to get B tier type treatment. It can really help you close out a game because it can likely hit an avatar there and by getting to their back row. Focus is one that's kind of interesting here. It has Deathrite. Each opponent discards a card at random. If you have a way to be able to give these guys a lance, they can go in, attack for 3, take a card, maybe they go in, they're able to trade with something, and then you get this Genesis effect. At that point, you're kind of getting a 2 for 1 out of it, and that's good value, but I don't really know if I'm really looking to play this card. Red Cap Powers, on the other hand, this is one that I think is going to see a ton of play in Constructed and is incredibly strong here in Limited. It is a 3/3. It has charge. If Red Cap Powers have not attacked, by the end of your turn they die. They're coming in, trust me, they're attacking, they're getting after it. This is a really solid B tier card. You're picking this up, pick 2, pick 3, early and often. You love seeing red cap powers in your deck. And same thing here with the Raiders. Charge must be cast to a site without, or sorry, may be cast to a site without enemies coming in with charge. You're getting the extra damage. You are thrilled to be able to open up some of these charge minions in your pack. Shatter Strike, an allied targets an enemy adjacent to them, destroying an artifact they're carrying and striking them. This is the best. This is the top of the line removal in red. When you crack their lance, then you strike them to hit them first. This is kind of like a grapple shot type effect where you're just striking them. Really good card. You're picking this up early and often. This is a rare level potential pick in red. Siege Giant, really strong, 4 power, 4 mana, and once during your turn, Siege Giant may throw a weaker minion from here through the air to a nearby site. So this can be really good to help come up with a surprise attack, and maybe you can pick off an extra card with Siege Giant's mobility because it's once during your turn, even in on the turn that it came down. So solid B card here. And similar to it being a B card, we have the War Horse that has charge, may carry an ally, but it is just a 2 mana, 2 power, getting in there with the charge, being able to wreak havoc on your opponent. Koi Nixie is just really not a card that I'm wanting to play here in Limited. It's really just the 3-2. It can pull you close to you. This might just be kind of a curve filler, but this is not one that I'm hoping to prioritize when I am building my limited decks. Degradation, on the other hand, now this is a card that I am prioritizing, I am playing, that I want to see. This is an A level type removal card. Transform a mortal into a foot soldier token. Really strong because the foot soldiers are easy to remove, but in addition there's so many mortals because of all the knights that are in this set. So Degradation, really good card. Giant Killer is not one that I'd really be thrilled to play. In a best of 3 type draft limited environment, I'd be willing to play it. But here, just a 3-2, I wouldn't necessarily. Like, it's kind of coincidental if it adds that additional value. So it's probably, this is definitely a card that I'm not looking to play right now. Now, Kingswood Poachers. Now, this one, Stealth Genesis, search a spell book. So it could be yours or your opponent's. For 3 beasts, banish them and then shuffle. The thought here is that you can actually go in and you can banish your opponent's big bombs if you know that they're playing a minion, a beast-focused deck. Now the other option is that you can actually mill yourself and get rid of some of your lower cards that you do not want to draw. That way you're drawing a lot more impactful cards rather than these small 1/1s. Lugbog Cat. So can be cast to a water site. It is a 3 mana, 4 power, kind of an autumn unicorn here for water. Really, really strong B tier type card that you're looking to play here. This is not quite a rare level, but it's one that you're wanting to fit into your deck, assuming that you're playing water. Now the giant we talked about is because of its 6 power, this might be something that you pick up early and often. Yes, there's on color rares, you're probably taking above this. This is a pick 2, a second pick in a lot of circumstances. Very similarly to Snowball. Snowball is just such a good finisher here in water. It gives you a way to be able to deal pushback aggressive minions. There's also where a lot of minions in Limited get played because they're smaller. You can get a 2, 3, 4 for 1 and deal a lot of damage to your opponent's avatar as this big old massive snowball rolls down and crashes into your opponent. Now, Sugar Plum Pixies, Airborne, at the end of your turn, you may untap an ally nearby. It's really just a 2-2. This is not one that I'm thrilled to play. It is maybe the bottom of C, top of D type card, just because I'm not really looking to play a whole bunch of 2-2s in my limited environment. Bailey. This is one, enemies cannot move here on the ground, and Limited just really doesn't have much of an effect. You don't really want to be playing this card in Limited. Maybe there's a control deck in Constructed that wants to prevent you from walking on sites, but that's not one that you're really looking to do right now with the Bailey Unlimited. Now, Cold Iron Rod. Fairies are disabled. This is just too specific. This is never going to be a card that you're really playing in a draft or sealed event. Maybe in a best of 3, but it's definitely not going to be something that you're playing in a best of 1. Forbury Knot. This is one where minions take no damage from units with 4 power or more, and it's also a fairy. This is one that's just like, I really don't think I ever really want to put this into the deck. Not being able to be attacked by minions 4 power or more, that seems interesting, where I might want to put that on a knight, but I would also hate for my opponent to take it. Now they have this, and it can be really hard for me to deal with. So just not really a card that I'm thrilled to play in my limited environment. Iron Man Talus here cannot be disabled or moved by force, which means it can't be drowned, it can't be buried, it can't be Avatar of Air lifted around, but it's a 4/3. Like, it's, if you really are desperate for a card, like, sure, maybe it could be Iron Man, but I don't really see a reason to bring in Iron Man right now. Sword and Shield. Bearer has +2 power. Your opponents can quite easily take this if you have a big range defense. Maybe at that point Sword and Shield becomes worth it, but really this is not a card that I'm really looking to play too much right now. Maybe that changes with more range, but I don't want to give this Sword and Shield over to my opponent. Now the Night Cycle has been really the thing that sets this limited format apart. Lances are really strong. They're definitely worth, I would say, probably a little bit more than a mana. And then you get these really powerful bodies on top of the knights. Now there's 2 knights in here, the Black Knight and the White Knight. Black Knight's a little bit more aggressive. If you have more life than your opponent, you get a discount. The White Knight, which we'll talk about here in just a second, it's to kind of help you catch back up. And so you'll be able to play it cheaper if you have less life than your opponent. But Black Knight coming down here as a potentially 3 mana 5/3, which is just nuts if you already have an aggressive deck, and can come down and almost be like a win more type card to try to help you close the game out, seal the deal. Blue Knight, Purple Knight, they are 3/2s with Lance, nothing too special to say there. White Knight, we talked about kind of being defensive here, where it can be a 3/5, and it will cost 2 less if you have less life than your opponents, and so it can help be a kind of a defensive card to slow down the game. Verdant Knight, Yellow Knight, both of these same thing, 3/2s with Lance, really cool cycle there. Moving over into the sites, now this is really what I feel like sets up the limited for Arthurian Legends to be so different than Alpha and Beta. Where in Alpha and Beta you only had the 1 site in the back of the pack, you're really looking at 2 to 3 sites in most packs of Arthurian Legends. And then you also have the exceptional sites that we'll hit on here shortly, and so you have a very good variety of really powerful sites that aren't necessarily as game defining or game breaking as our original ordinary sites were in Alpha and Beta. And so first here we have Lookout that has Genesis, your opponent reveals their hand. That is extra knowledge that can help you craft your turns in ways that will best support you and help shape your way to victory. And then you have the Treetop Hideout, which allows you to be able to give a minion stealth. This can be really strong if you're trying to play that kind of bit of aggressive strategy and able to go in, swing in, attack with your minion, then play this site, giving them stealth. That ordering just can matter quite a bit. But then if you give them stealth, you'll have another attack that you can do with that minion. Common Village, this is our kind of traditional beta village here where you're just paying 1 to be able to pick up a foot soldier. Now, moving on here, we have the Hunter's Lodge, Genesis, Bearers lose stealth. This provides an earth threshold. It does matter in this format, stealth does, but this is one that you're pretty happy to play. You don't mind playing this because this is better than just a regular, it doesn't do anything site. Bonfire, Genesis, you may destroy all weapons and auras nearby. This can be a great way to deal with pesky
enemy lances. It's hard to get the right positioning with some of these cards for the nearbys to make it work. But it's still could be a really good way, especially if you don't rely on a lot of lances yourself. But speaking of lances, we have Forge here, which lets you pay 1 to be able to conjure a lance here as part of its Genesis effect. Now, Bog, this is one where it allows you to be able to identify, target a site, and then they become immobile for a turn. A really strong card. Whenever I was playing water, I did a balance between 2 each of the bogs and 2 of the ponds, because pond is so good because it ignores threshold requirements, allowing you to be able to drop scary things like brown bears on turn 3, which is really probably what helped me get victory in the most recent Sorcery sealed event here at Denton, Texas at the Reaper Game Store. Hamlet here, an ordinary site where your ordinary minions cost 1 less to cast to this site. This one's interesting. It doesn't provide any threshold. I thought this was going to be a lot stronger, but because there's not a lot of draw with the Spell Slinger, I think it does end up pretty balanced. It's hard to know exactly if you want to play Hamlet or not because of the variations that you might have in having a 2-color deck versus a 3-color deck. Maybe in 2-color decks you can afford to run a Hamlet, but in 3-color decks I really don't know if you can. So Hamlet, really cool card. I think it's going to make waves in Constructed, but in Limited I think it's probably more on the B side. Then we have the Leyline Hinge, which seems really good on paper. It says Genesis, you may draw a card for each Leyline Hinge that you are adjacent to, which is kind of that plus pattern. The whole thought is if you're able to build out the hinge here, you get to draw some extra cards. Now, the issue here is that you're maybe drawing 3, maybe 4 cards when you're playing that, and so it's just not one that I would highly encourage you to pick up or to play right now. All right, moving over to the exceptional sites here, we have Beacon that says Genesis, gain 1 for each nearby minion or nearby site with a enemy atop it, and so this can be really strong as a way to ramp up, get extra mana in for the turn, especially if you're facing down a lot of pressure, which can help you have the removal or play the removal in order to take and relieve some of that pressure that's there. Phase City here has tap an allied fairy here, shoot a projectile that deals 1 damage. If there's enough of a combo, maybe there's something that you can do here, but I think a lot of minions are going to be staying away from where you could ping them down with the Phase City. Probably one that I'm going to be skipping on for now. Now the next one, the Path here, whenever an enemy enters the realm or leaves it, it takes 1 damage. And then the last one here says projectiles can't enter this site from the outside. And so all of these are way better than any of the sites that are in the draft kit, because the draft kit's just blank, and so any extra value that you can squeeze out of these cards is really good here. And then we have the Pebbled Paths, which minions atop nearby sites lose charge, provides earth. And then we have the Funeral Pyre that says Genesis, banish up to 3 cards from 1 cemetery. Poisoned Well, really strong here. Enemies' avatars lose 1 life for each nearby site they control. And then you have Babbling Brook. Once during your turn, Genesis, until your next turn, minions are disabled while atop nearby sites, which is a great way to be able to slow the game down in a limited environment. If you're playing water, there's a good chance you're trying to get to that late game. Troll Bridge is just kind of a nuisance there. Everybody can discard a card, or you can just go ahead and allow the Troll Bridge to attack you for 3. Annual Fair, it does not provide any threshold, but it gives you the opportunity to pay 1 to generate all the threshold you need. And so you can use that in Constructed to help turn on things like Island Leviathan, for example. Tournament Grounds, really cool card. I would be nervous playing this in Limited because of the fact that I don't know who has better knights, who has more knights, and it says anyone may cast knights, sirs, or dames to this site and may do so without the threshold. That could be really good, especially if you're not playing in a knight deck. However, if you're playing against knights, tournament ground just seems a little bit scarier there. Town is exceptional minions may be cast. Exceptional minions cost 1 less to be cast to this site. So this is really good with all these charge minions and constructed. It's hard for me to want to play a colorless site in sealed because of how important the mana thresholds are. But that, I think, does it. So that is every common, ordinary, or exceptional card in Sorcery Contested Realm, Arthurian Legends. I'm so excited to see what draft looks and feels like with this set. I feel like I have a good grasp, and I know they're working on the TTS update right now that should have draft in it. What I will say is I'm going to link my Discord below, where I am hoping to be able to do some draft tournaments, some different tournaments on the server, as well as just hang out and engage and talk to the community here. That's helped grow this channel from 0 subscribers less than a year ago to where we are today at, pushing almost 350? So thank you all so much just for all the growth that this channel has had. I'm excited for Arthurian Legends. Can't wait to get back into some paper gameplay. I have a few decks that I've been working on. Excited to go back down to Reaper Games and play those decks there in person. But until then, leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to the channel. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a good day. Take care. Bye.